Hello everyone, and today we're going to be talking about hydraulic fracturing. My name is Tyler Ogle. It's a hotly debated topic, not so much anymore. It's kind of fallen off the map. It was a little more prevalent about 2 to 3 years ago. But it's an interesting topic, and it's one that's relevant to our area, Youngstown, Ohio, Pennsylvania. There's a lot of shale. A lot of the problems with hydraulic fracturing is that people really don't know what it is, and that sometimes can be scary. A lot of times in history, if we don't know something, we just automatically assume it's a bad thing because that's just what we do as a human race. The first problem with hydraulic fracturing that people oftentimes find is there's a movie called Gasland. It was like a documentary, and one of the things on it were that people in like Utah and like the Midwest were actually lighting their tap water on fire, and that's pretty freaking spooky. If you don't know what's actually happening, the idea was that whenever they were fracturing the shale, natural gas was getting up into their wells because these people weren't on city water; they were on public wells or private wells. And what was happening was what they were claiming was that whenever they fractured the shale, the natural gas would leak up through the ground and into their well, and they were drinking what would appear to be a methane mixture of water. Um, this is a very, very rare case that's actually been proven in the court of law. I think there's three in Utah. And this is because of very soft state regulations. Um, Pennsylvania is a really good option. They actually have really hard state regulations for hydraulic fracturing. They could be shopped at any point in time. Like a state regulator could come out to the drill site, and if anything's going wrong, he completely shuts it down, and they're not allowed to drill there anymore. So Pennsylvania cracks down on them. The Midwest, they're a little more lenient. Texas is very lenient on how they hydraulic fracture, which isn't a very good thing. State regulations are a good thing. Federal regulations really aren't that great. One of the things with water on fire, especially in Utah, is that methane occurs naturally in the soils in some places. There's actually accounts of water catching on fire all the way back to like 1929. There's a news article about water, tap water catching on fire. It's actually kind of interesting. And that is actually before hydraulic fracturing started around 1958. So it's kind of hard for hydraulic fracturing to cause their tap water to catch on fire if it hasn't even been around yet. Um, the second problem people find with hydraulic fracturing is the NIMBY. If you don't know what that means, it stands for Not in My Backyard. Um, People believe that people aren't being compensated well enough for them drilling in their backyard. There's an analogy where a person has a railroad station in their back of their yard and they have to listen to trains go by, but they're not compensated for living there. Maybe the price of their house is a little bit cheaper, but they're not compensated by the railroad company. Whereas hydraulic fracturing, if they're actually in your yard or within a vicinity of your yard, they actually have to have the land rights to your ground to actually even drill in there. And these were figures in 2013. For 10 acres of land, you could get around $50,000. It's kind of fallen off with the price of oil dropping. Price of gas is like around like $2 a gallon right now. So they're really not doing as much of fracturing anymore with the prices dropping. The companies cannot just drill anywhere they like. A lot of people like to think that they're giant corporate billionaires that just walk in and flash all the money in the world and then you're forced to take it. You do not have to take $50,000. You can say, no, I would prefer you not to be drilling in my backyard. Please go away. That is an option. Can't force you to drill in your backyard. I mean, money's a really good motivator, but if you're not motivated by money, you really don't have to worry about them drilling in your backyard. Um, After drilling is done, there's a very small impact done to the land surrounding. It's actually a picture of what a well site will look like after the process of drilling has already been completed. Um, all that is just a little wellhead, and all they do is tap that, and they'll pull off natural gas whenever they want to, depending on the demand of the economy. Um, Environmental impact is another huge one. It's probably one of the biggest gripes with hydraulic fracturing. There's a couple pictures right there. Let's see. The first one says 5 million gallons equals the average water daily usage from a state college in Pennsylvania. I can't. That seems like a lot, and I want to say roughly that's how much hydraulic fracturing uses in about a week. And whenever you see a statistic like hydraulic fracturing uses 5 million gallons of water in a week, you're kind of like, holy crap, that's a lot of water. But one college is using that in approximately a day. So really, the water usage is a lot, but that's just the way our society works now, is that we frivolously use water. And if the water is properly recycled at the end of the process, instead of like this being, it's a well injection head, and one of the ways, it's not so much prevalent anymore, but which is a good thing, all they would do is they would drill a hole down, and they would get a little pressurized pipe, and then they would just shoot all the wastewater down in the ground, try and shove it really deep far down in there so they don't have to worry about it, and they just bury it, and then it's alright. That was only allowed in certain areas. It's not a good thing. That was actually, whenever you hear earthquakes being linked to hydraulic fracturing, it's actually not the fracturing process itself. It's actually this process of disposing of wastewater that was actually being linked to the small earthquakes. A lot of were prevalent in Ohio. So I believe that is not a good thing, but wastewater can be recycled. There are industries that take all the ethylene glycol and all the components out of the water, and it can either be recycled to be drinking water, or it can just be shoved back down into a well. So usually it's just shoved back down into a well. Let's see. Yeah, wastewater injection is not a viable way of disposing of the water. Hydraulic fracturing is a process that's been going on for about 40 years now. They really know what they're doing, but if they're not held to high standards, just like anyone, if we're not all held to high standards, sometimes we'll try and find the easier route out. In conclusion, what we can see is that water on fire, there can be cases linked to faulty casing with hydraulic fracturing that can lead to the tap water catching on fire. More often than not, it's just people's wells being dug in poor areas. When they were dug pre-1960, they really didn't have geographical surveyors surveying the land saying, hey, we probably shouldn't put a well here. There's a natural methane deposit under there. Your tap water is going to catch on fire. They really didn't know any of that. So now we have that information, so it's a lot less common. So when we do see it, we freak out. There's no reason to freak out. There's always an explanation for something. Public is well compensated for the land. I guess it's more of an opinion. If $50,000 for 10 acres isn't well compensated, you do have to pay taxes on that, so it's not like you're getting a flat $50,000 out of it. But it's not that companies aren't paying for what they're doing in your backyard. They will pay for it only if you take it. Let's see, and wastewater needs care. The process itself is safe, but only if we make it safe. So federal regulations really don't know what the state needs as far as regulations are concerned, so I believe federal regulations aren't really a thing. But state regulations, the state knows what the state needs more than what the federal government needs for the state. So you could say state regulations could be stricter, or they just could be more well enforced. You just all follow suit of Pennsylvania. They're cracking down on it. Don't just shove wastewater into the ground. That's not a good thing. That comes back, and then now we just have wastewater in the ground, and we're making small earthquakes. Recycle that, and it's not a problem. And that is my presentation. Thank you all.